This is a video on conclusions and how to wrap up your paper in a way that is more creative and more effective than the simple 5-paragraph essay ending. So first of all, it's important to touch on the purpose of conclusions. The conclusion is really meant to give your reader one last thing to think about. So you can evaluate your evidence, sort of go over the points that you've tried to make throughout the essay itself and sort of wrap things up. Think of this as a sort of a, if you were in court and the prosecuting attorney or the defense attorney were giving their closing arguments, that's the sort of thing you can do in a conclusion. It's a way to evaluate that last evidence, and you really want to tell them what that evidence means, why it's important. So you want to really look at the importance of what it is that you had to say. And this is also a place to really re-emphasize insights. So those things that you think are unique to your perspective would really be the thing you want to spend your time on. And you really, this is a place where you want to be witty and as intelligent as you possibly can, because it's the last thing your reader will remember about your essay. And the stronger the conclusion, the stronger you wrap things up, the last impression will, the stronger that last impression will be. And you really want to show that your ideas matter. So you really want to make sure you hit on the why. This is an important thing to talk about. So conclusions really do have a lot of importance. So here are some strategies that work. And remember that you can use more than one. You don't need to stick to just one of these. They can be combined in several ways. One way is to just really reflect on the importance or implications of your thesis. Talk about what your main point is again, and talk about why it's important and what it can imply about our future or the future of the readers. Another strategy is a call to action, which is basically telling your reader, look, we need to do something about this. Generally, you want to avoid you. You is a bad idea in a conclusion. It makes you sound preachy. If you feel the need to talk to your reader, you want to include yourself and use we, always that first person plural. You can also, this is a really effective thing, this idea of a hook. So anything that you had in your intro, you could talk about again in your conclusion. And it provides that sort of closure that a lot of people like. So let's say you started with a story, you can end reminding your readers about the story and how what you wrote in your paper would affect that beginning story and sort of wrap things up. Another strategy is creating a sort of vivid picture or image through your words by description, or let's say you're arguing for global warming, for example, and you want to say that it's real. Creating a vivid picture of what the Earth would be like 100 years from now when we've exhausted all our resources through description would be very effective. It also works really well to look up a quotation and have that very last sentence be a quote, especially from someone rather infamous or something that has been said in a very poignant way that can leave that lasting impression on your reader. Rhetorical questions, or a question that is not meant to be answered, that just gets your reader thinking, is also really effective. So asking at the end, what do you think you will do, is a sort of a rhetorical question, right? You could also spend your entire conclusion talking about a solution that you see and why you see it's valuable, and perhaps some suggestions for how to handle whatever it is you've discussed. It's always a good thing to end with reasonable hope rather than doom and gloom. People like hope. And so ending on a note that is positive also can be effective. And you can combine that with a prediction of sorts, if we, etc., and do the sort of if thing and see what you think could possibly happen in the future. So keep in mind that you can use more than one. You can use a hook and end with a quote. You can create a vivid image or picture and end with a prediction. There are a lot of ways that you can wrap things up besides just restating your thesis and summarizing. Which takes me to my last point. Some of the conclusions to avoid. You want to avoid anything that's really short. Anytime you have a really short conclusion, it implies that there's something wrong with what you just wrote because you don't know how to wrap it up. You don't know what your last point is that you want to make. So very often that really brief conclusion means you haven't thought through your ideas well. Another summary to avoid, or another conclusion to avoid, is this idea of summing up your paper. If your paper is short, and by short I mean anything under 20 pages, then you do not need to summarize your paper. If your paper is short, your reader will remember what you have said. If you feel the need to sum up your ideas, do it in the second to the last paragraph. Take that second to the last paragraph, sum up your ideas, make sure your reader remembers your point, and then end with something really effective and strong and powerful to help them remember. And you want to avoid these. You don't need them. The reader can see that you're on your last paragraph. They are unnecessary. Don't need those there. So those are some strategies for conclusions.